The airport buzzed with the chatter of travelers, the hum of announcements, and the soft screech of luggage wheels. Sarah took a deep breath, clutching her boarding pass as she stepped into the terminal. This was it, her first trip to the United States for an exchange program. Excitement and nerves swirled in her chest as she adjusted the strap of her backpack. "Hi, are you Sarah?" A cheerful voice interrupted her thoughts. Turning, she saw a blonde girl with bright green eyes and a confident smile. "I'm Kate, your roommate. I came to pick you up." Kate's warm introduction immediately eased Sarah's nerves. During the ride to the dormitory, Kate shared stories about the campus and her favorite places in the city. Sarah nodded along, understanding bits and pieces of the fast-paced English. She tried to respond, carefully stringing together phrases. "Happy to meet you," she said with a shy smile. At the dorm, Sarah admired the cozy but vibrant room they would share. Posters of bands she didn't recognize covered Kate's side, while her own side felt bare with just her suitcase and a notebook. "Don't worry, we'll make this place feel like home," Kate said, "and if you need help with English, just ask me." Sarah felt a surge of gratitude for her friendly new roommate. The days that followed were a whirlwind of orientation events and adjusting to life abroad. Sarah struggled to keep up with conversations, often feeling like an outsider in group settings. But Kate was always there to guide her, explaining slang and encouraging her to practice. For now, Sarah felt hopeful about this new chapter. She didn't know it yet, but her trust in Kate would soon be tested in ways she couldn't imagine. Sarah settled into her new routine at the university, but one constant in her life remained: Alex, her boyfriend back in Brazil. Every evening, no matter how busy her day was, they exchanged messages and video calls. His familiar voice and supportive words became her anchor as she navigated the challenges of being in a foreign country. "Tell me everything about your day," Alex would say, his smile filling the small screen of her phone. Sarah shared stories of her classes, the friendly people she met, and her progress with English. "Kate is really helpful," she added one evening. "She explains new words to me and even helps me with slang." "That's great," Alex replied. "But don't let her steal you away from me," he joked, his laugh warm and comforting. Kate often overheard these calls and would chime in occasionally. "Hey, Alex." She'd call out, her English fast and confident. "Take care of Sarah, she's amazing." Sarah would laugh nervously, wondering if Alex understood Kate's playful tone. As weeks passed, Sarah noticed that Kate seemed increasingly curious about Alex. She'd ask questions like, "How long have you been together?" Or, "What does Alex do for work?" At first, Sarah thought nothing of it. Kate was naturally outgoing and interested in everyone's stories. One evening, as Sarah was typing a long message to Alex, Kate glanced over her shoulder. "Wow, you guys talk a lot," she said, half joking. "Isn't it hard being so far away?" Sarah paused, considering the question. "It's hard, yes, but we trust each other. And I think that's the most important thing." Kate nodded but didn't say much else. Later that night, as Sarah drifted off to sleep, she couldn't shake the feeling that something in Kate's expression had seemed off. A flicker of doubt sparked in her mind, though she quickly dismissed it. For now, everything seemed fine. But Sarah had no idea how much her long-distance relationship and her trust in Kate was about to be tested. One crisp evening, Sarah sat at her desk, flipping through her English notes. Kate was on her bed, scrolling through her phone as usual. The room was quiet except for the occasional sound of Kate laughing softly at whatever was on her screen. Sarah glanced up briefly, curious. Kate wasn't the type to laugh quietly. Her humor was loud and infectious. But now her laughter seemed almost guarded. As Sarah returned to her notes, she caught a fragment of Kate's phone conversation. "Yeah, Alex, I get it," Kate said, her voice light but teasing. "You're so funny." Sarah froze. Alex? Was it a coincidence? She told herself there must be other people named Alex. After all, it was a common name. But as the conversation continued, Sarah couldn't help but notice Kate's tone. It was playful, almost flirtatious. "Who are you talking to?" Sarah asked casually, trying to keep her voice steady. Kate glanced at her and grinned. "Just a friend," she said, brushing it off. Then she changed the subject, asking about Sarah's classes and the new words she'd learned that day. Sarah tried to push her doubts aside, convincing herself she was overthinking. But that night, as she lay in bed, the memory of Kate's laughter and the mention of Alex replayed in her mind. The next day, things felt different. Sarah couldn't help but notice little moments that fed her unease. Kate spent more time on her phone, often giggling quietly. She started asking more pointed questions about Alex, his job, his hobbies, even how often Sarah spoke to him. "You guys must be so in love," Kate remarked one afternoon, her voice cheerful but with an undertone Sarah couldn't quite place. "Yes, we are," Sarah replied firmly, though she felt a knot tightening in her stomach. One evening, Sarah came back to the dorm unexpectedly after a canceled class. Kate, startled, quickly locked her phone and smiled awkwardly. "Oh, you're back early," she said, her tone unusually high-pitched. Sarah nodded, her suspicion growing. Something wasn't right, but she couldn't bring herself to confront Kate not yet. Instead, she decided to keep a closer eye on her roommate, waiting for a moment when she could confirm what she dreaded. The doubt that had started as a flicker was now a burning question. Was Kate really talking to Alex, and if so, why? The tension in Sarah's mind grew with each passing day. Kate's behavior had become increasingly suspicious, quiet phone calls, cryptic smiles, and her seemingly endless curiosity about Alex. Sarah tried to focus on her studies, but the unease lingered, clouding her thoughts. One afternoon, Sarah returned to the dorm to grab a book she had forgotten. She opened the door quietly, expecting to find the room empty. Instead, Kate's phone was sitting on her desk, buzzing with notifications. Kate was nowhere in sight. Sarah hesitated. She wasn't the type to invade someone's privacy, but her suspicions had reached a breaking point. As her eyes moved to the screen, a message caught her attention. "Alex, can we talk later? I miss you." Her heart sank. She stared at the words, hoping she had misread them. How could Alex, her Alex, be messaging Kate? For a moment, the room spun, and she felt a rush of anger, hurt, and disbelief all at once. Before she could think it through, the door opened, and Kate walked in, carrying a coffee cup. She froze when she saw Sarah standing by her desk. "Hey, what are you doing?" Kate asked, her voice guarded. Sarah didn't answer. Instead, she stepped back, pointing at the phone. Why? Why is Alex texting you? What's going on, Kate? Kate's eyes widened for a split second, but she quickly recovered, putting on a calm facade. It's nothing, she said, laughing nervously. We were just talking about you, that's all. Really? Sarah's voice trembled. Because that message doesn't sound like it's about me. Kate's smile faltered. Okay, fine, she admitted, crossing her arms. We've been talking, but it's harmless. He's just really easy to talk to. Sarah felt a wave of anger rise in her chest. He's my boyfriend, Kate. How could you do this? Kate's expression softened, but she didn't apologize. I didn't think it was a big deal. I mean, you're so far away, and you talk about him all the time. I was curious. Curious? Sarah repeated, her voice breaking. She clenched her fists, fighting back tears. That's not an excuse. You betrayed me. The room fell silent. Kate avoided Sarah's gaze, and for the first time she looked uncomfortable. I didn't mean to hurt you, Kate said softly. But maybe you should talk to Alex. If you don't trust him, that's not on me. The words stung, but Sarah knew Kate was deflecting. This wasn't just about Alex. It was about trust and respect, things Sarah thought she and Kate had. She walked to the door, her heart pounding. We're not done talking about this, Sarah said firmly, but right now I need to think. As she stepped outside, the cool air hit her face and a single tear rolled down her cheek. The betrayal cut deep, but she knew she couldn't let it define her. Sarah spent the night turning over every detail in her mind. The betrayal felt like a knife, twisting deeper with each thought. She couldn't avoid the confrontation any longer. The next morning, she took a deep breath, rehearsing what she would say. Words like trust, betrayal, and respect echoed in her head, but they still felt heavy and awkward on her tongue. When she returned to the dorm that afternoon, Kate was sitting on her bed, scrolling through her phone. The sight made Sarah's stomach tighten, but she pushed her nerves aside. Kate, she said, her voice steady but firm. We need to talk. Kate looked up, a hint of defensiveness flashing across her face. Okay, she said, setting her phone down. What's on your mind? Sarah pulled a chair over and sat down, facing her roommate directly. I saw the messages, she began, her voice trembling slightly. You've been talking to Alex, my boyfriend. I want to know why. Kate hesitated, then sighed. Look, I already told you, it's not what you think. Sarah shook her head. Then explain it to me. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're going behind my back. Kate crossed her arms, her tone growing sharper. Fine. Yes, I've been talking to Alex, but I wasn't trying to steal him from you or anything. It's just, he reached out to me first, okay? And we started chatting. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal? Sarah repeated, her voice rising. He's my boyfriend, Kate. How is that not a big deal? Kate rolled her eyes. You're overreacting. It's just texts. He's lonely, you're far away, and honestly, maybe you should be asking him why he's messaging me. The words hit Sarah like a slap. She felt anger bubbling to the surface, but instead of lashing out, she forced herself to stay calm. I'll talk to Alex, she said, her tone icy. But this isn't just about him. It's about you. You're supposed to be my friend. Friends don't do this. Kate softened slightly, looking down at her hands. I didn't mean to hurt you, she muttered. I guess I wasn't thinking. That's obvious, Sarah said, standing up, but the damage is done. And I don't know if I can trust you anymore. The room was silent. Kate didn't argue, didn't defend herself further. Sarah walked to the door, pausing with her hand on the handle. I need space, she said quietly. And I think you need to figure out what kind of person you want to be. As Sarah stepped into the hallway, she felt a strange mix of emotions, anger, sadness, relief. She had finally spoken her truth, and while it didn't erase the pain, it was a step toward reclaiming her voice. The door closed behind Sarah with a soft click, but the echoes of the confrontation lingered in her mind. Her heart felt heavy, but there was also a strange sense of relief. She had spoken up, even though the conversation didn't bring the closure she wanted. Now, she needed time to process everything. That evening, Sarah joined a group of fellow exchange students for dinner at a small cafe near campus. Among them was Elena, a kind and empathetic girl from Spain who had quickly become one of Sarah's closest friends. As they sipped on hot tea, Elena noticed Sarah's troubled expression. Are you okay? You seem distracted, she said gently. Sarah hesitated but decided to confide in her. In halting English, she explained everything, the messages, the betrayal, and the confrontation with Kate. As she spoke, Elena nodded thoughtfully, occasionally helping Sarah with a word or phrase she struggled to find. That's really hard, Elena said when Sarah finished. But I think you handled it well. You spoke your feelings clearly, and that takes a lot of courage. Sarah managed a small smile. It didn't feel brave. It felt exhausting. Elena placed a reassuring hand on Sarah's. It's okay to feel that way. Just remember, this is also helping you grow. You're learning to stand up for yourself and to express it in another language. That's not easy. The conversation gave Sarah a new perspective. Yes, the situation with Kate and Alex was painful, but it had also pushed her to use her English in ways she never imagined. It was a small silver lining, but one that mattered. Over the next few days, Sarah threw herself into her studies and social activities. She spent less time in the dorm and more time exploring the city, practicing her English with locals, and building connections with other exchange students. Each conversation felt like a tiny victory, a reminder that she was stronger than she gave herself credit for. Kate, on the other hand, kept her distance. Their exchanges were polite but strained, and the once easy friendship between them was now a careful dance of avoidance. Sarah didn't know if they could ever repair what was broken, but for now, she chose to focus on herself. By the week's end, Sarah realized she was moving forward. The betrayal still stung, but it no longer defined her days. She was building something new: confidence, independence, and a sense of self-worth that no one could take away. A week later, Sarah sat by the window in her favorite campus cafe, watching raindrops streak down the glass. The steady rhythm of the rain mirrored the calm she was beginning to feel. She had spent the past few days reflecting on everything that had happened, from the betrayal to the confrontation with Kate. While the pain hadn't entirely faded, she felt stronger, more certain of herself. Her phone buzzed, breaking her thoughts. It was a message from Alex. "I'm sorry for everything, Sarah. Can we talk?" She stared at the message for a moment, her emotions swirling. Part of her wanted to ignore him, but another part knew she needed closure. She replied simply, "Okay, let's talk." Later that evening, they connected on a video call. Alex looked tired, his usual confidence replaced with a sheepish expression. "Sarah, I messed up," he admitted. "I shouldn't have been talking to Kate. It wasn't fair to you." Sarah listened quietly, letting him explain. He claimed it had started as friendly conversations but had gone too far. "I didn't mean to hurt you," he said, his voice heavy with regret. "I appreciate you saying that," Sarah replied, her tone calm but firm. "But trust isn't something you can break and fix so easily. I need time to think about what's next for me." Alex nodded, understanding. "I hope you find what makes you happy, Sarah, even if it's not with me." As the call ended, Sarah felt a sense of closure she hadn't expected. It wasn't easy to let go, but she knew it was the right thing to do. The next morning, as she walked to class, she felt lighter. The experience had taught her more than just new English phrases. It had shown her how strong she could be, even in the face of heartbreak. Looking ahead, she felt ready to embrace the rest of her journey abroad. There was so much more to discover, and for the first time, she was excited to see where the path would take her. The weeks after Sarah's conversation with Alex brought a surprising sense of clarity. She had chosen to distance herself from both Alex and Kate, focusing instead on building her own life in the United States. It wasn't easy at first. The dorm felt colder without the warmth of their initial friendship, but Sarah filled the silence with something better: growth. She started spending more time with her exchange student group, particularly Elena, who had become her closest confidant. Together, they explored the city, tried new foods, and laughed over their shared struggles with English. Every interaction gave Sarah a little more confidence, and soon she found herself speaking without overthinking every word. One Friday evening, Sarah stood in front of the mirror, preparing for a group dinner with her new friends. She glanced at her reflection and smiled. Gone was the hesitant girl who had arrived weeks ago, afraid of making mistakes. In her place was someone stronger, someone who had faced challenges and come out the other side. The dinner was lively, filled with laughter and stories from their time abroad. When it was Sarah's turn to share, she spoke with ease about the lessons she had learned, not just about the language, but about herself. "I realize that trusting myself is more important than trusting someone else," she said, her voice steady. Her friends clapped and cheered, celebrating her journey. As she walked back to the dorm that night, the campus lights twinkling in the distance, Sarah felt a sense of peace. She still had much to learn, but she was no longer afraid of the challenges ahead. For the first time, she felt truly at home, both in this new country and within herself. The betrayal she had experienced no longer defined her. It was a chapter in her story, but not the whole book. Sarah was ready to keep writing her own narrative, one step, one word, and one victory at a time. If you've watched this far, leave a like and subscribe to follow more.